How bad was the LA Kings offseason really? Plus, an explanation on why players don't want to play in LA, maybe. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also, one of the co-hosts of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show now in its 20th season of covering the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on today's show, I am going to tell you how I fell into a jersey number rabbit hole. We also have an explanation on why LA is not a place NHL players want to play. We'll see about that. Plus, how Liam Greenree is getting screwed. But we start with an article I saw in The Athletic, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. It was written by a gentleman named Don Lecision. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. It's got 3 Z's and 2 Y's in it, so damn. It's pretty impressive. I also think it's Polish. But anyway, Don wrote an article ranking all 32 NHL teams based on their offseason moves. And he had the LA Kings ranked dead last at number 32. Now, is this piling on or is this legit? Well, let's see what he had to say. Starts off by listing the ins and outs in Corey Perry, Joel Armia, Cody Ceci, Brian Dumoulin, Anton Forsberg out, Tanner Jeannot, Vladislav Gavrikov, Jordan Spence, and David Riddick. And here is what the article says, quote, "You've heard of addition by subtraction. Well, the Kings pulled off the rare feat of subtraction by addition. On defense, the team turned Vladislav Gavrikov, an actual top-pairing defenseman, into Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin, 2 low-end third-pair defensemen at best. They also parted ways with Jordan Spence, an undersized defender who looked promising in a sheltered role last year. The series of decisions is among the strangest in recent memory, where the team added up paying the exact same contract amount of money, $8.5 million, to downgrade their blue line by 18 goals. Is it possible that the system is all that matters in Los Angeles, that both Ceci and Dumoulin will be better than they looked because of it, the system, and vice versa for the departed? Given the age and track record of the 2 new guys coming in, consider me highly skeptical of the bet the Kings made here. One where they saved $0 and got a lot worse in the process." And again, that was the article in The Athletic when he commented on every NHL team. Gentleman named Dom Lecision, yes, correct. And that's what he had to say about the LA Kings. So I have a little bit of a beef with some of the things he said. I think I've got a bigger beef, though, with what he didn't say. I would say, first and foremost, I do agree that this situation could be not as big of a deal as it might seem because of what he said. The system is what matters in LA. I do believe that in the LA Kings defensive system, that Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin will be fine. Not spectacular, not great, but they'll be fine. I also would take a little bit of a debate. I would take a little bit of an issue with calling Vladislav Gavrikov a top pairing defenseman. Now, he was last year. He did play up to that capability, but that was also the best year of his career. Is he always been that guy throughout his NHL career? No, he has not. So those are a couple of things I would take issue with. So I think that there's no defense in my mind as far as the money that was spent on 2 older, but not ancient, mid-level defensemen. I do agree that Dumoulin and Ceci, again, will be okay in the system. That the point that he tried to make as far as what the Kings are trying to do. I don't disagree, though, that the loss of Gavrikov is a crippling loss, which is what is being said here. You talk about, the Kings lost the top pairing defenseman. Well, he was a top pairing defenseman last year, but he hadn't been that in his previous years with the Kings. And I would argue again that Gavrikov is a very solid second pairing guy. I don't know that across the league he's a top pairing defenseman. Maybe he's listed to be in New York, and we'll see how that works out for him. He's going to have a lot more responsibility. He's going to have a lot more attention on him. And he's joining a team that is not nearly as good defensively as the Kings. So we'll see if he can put together another season like he did this past season. Then I will be impressed. I don't think it'll quite be that good, but that's the New York Rangers problem. That's not our problem. So Gavrikov, solid defenseman, loss, but I don't think it's as crippling a loss as that article makes it appear. So the loss does hurt. I'm not going to say that losing Gavrikov was some sort of a good thing. It does, I think, knock the Kings' defensive core down a notch. But again, I don't think it's that significant where the Kings are now in a dire situation. But I think the real issue, though, I have with that article is, again, not necessarily what he said, but what he didn't say. There's no mention of the additions of Corey Perry or Joel Armia on the fourth line. And look, I know it's a fourth line, but he's also critiquing the Kings for adding fourth or fifth or sixth defensemen, wherever those guys are going to end up. Maybe it's the fourth and fifth defenseman on the roster. It's important. You want to be as deep as you can be, and we saw in the postseason how that factors in. But again, if you're going to really call out the Kings for adding a couple of lower, defensemen, then I do think there should be some praise for adding some lower end forwards to make the roster a little bit more complete. So when you factor it all together, I think the Kings are probably about where they were a year ago. And if some other guys take a step forward, obviously Quentin Byfield, Brant Clark, maybe Alex Ferrier, then that could maybe make the Kings a little bit better. But all this really, and look, I get it. It's the offseason. Believe me, I know. We're writing things and we're coming up with ideas. And look, ranking where every team did what their offseason moves were. I totally understand why you write that article. And then look, I read it, so got the job done. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Kings are last, honestly. I think they're an easy target because of the contracts that they gave out. But in the end, the product on the ice, are you going to look at the Kings and you say, oh yeah, that's the worst team as far as moves made this offseason, and look at the results? I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't, again, do I think they're better? On the whole, I think it's about even. And the whole point of this was to make tweaks to get the Kings further in the playoffs. So that question will not be answered anytime soon. I will also say, the article that was written, he had the Sharks as the team that had the best offseason. And I don't see that at all. So, I mean, look, I'm not trying to say this guy doesn't have any credibility. I'm not trying to take a shot at him. I'm just saying, when you see the Kings last and the Sharks first, I mean, what did the Sharks do to win the offseason? That no other team in the NHL had a better offseason than the Sharks? I mean, I read what he said. I just don't, Dmitry Orlov. Wow. Okay. That guy's a great player, but Brian Dumoulin and Cody Ceci are the anchors that are going to drag the Kings down. I don't see that. I don't see that. So, again, I get that the Kings offseason was certainly not exciting. I don't expect anybody to be excited about it. You add a guy like Corey Perry, and that certainly doesn't help things because of his reputation and how a lot of Kings fans, myself included, do not like him. But in the end, it's possible that it could be what the Kings actually needed. So we'll see. We'll see. I just don't think the Kings offseason is quite as bad as some people seem to make it out. Again, when you're including the contracts, which is what that article was doing, I get that end of it. The money part of it, sure, that needs to be factored in as well. But I mean, what we're talking about, what we want as Kings fans, we're talking about the on-ice product for next season. Is it going to be significantly worse than it was last year because Vladislav Gavrikov is gone? I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest with you. So speaking of the 5 new players the Kings have added, we do know the jersey numbers for those 5 new players, and I was just going to put kind of a footnote about that, and it turned out to be kind of a bigger thing than I maybe intended it to be. We'll discuss that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Ever decided at the last minute you want to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible by making buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming game for the Dodgers or the Angels. Checking the Gametime app will show you last-minute ticket deals and zone deals, where you could save up to 10% on exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the LA Kings announced what numbers the newest LA Kings will be wearing. Corey Perry is going to wear number 10. That was the number he wore in Anaheim, and that jersey number was available because Tanner Jeannot was the last Kings player to wear number 10. And he's now no longer with the team. When you look at Kings history, players that have worn number 10, not exactly a who's who of all-stars. We're talking Michael Amadio, Tobias Reeder, Devin Setaguchi, Chris Versteeg, Christian Ehrhoff. The best number 10 for the Kings, I'll have to go with 2-time Stanley Cup winner Mike Richards. Cody Ceci is wearing number 5. The list of number 5s in Kings history, not exactly legendary either. We're talking most recently Andreas Engelland, Mark Alt, Christian Folan, Jamie McBain, Keaton Ellerby, Peter Holland, Brent Sopel, and the immortal Aki Berg. But I would say the best number 5 to ever wear that number for the LA Kings, Larry Murphy, in his rookie years with the Kings, who went on to make the Hall of Fame, had worn number 5 in the early 80s. Brian Dumoulin's going to wear number 2. That was last worn by Alex Edler for the LA Kings. Matt Green won a couple of Stanley Cups wearing number 2 for the LA Kings. Joel Armia is going to wear number 40. He's just the 6th player in Kings history to wear number 40, joining Daryl Sador, Barry Potomsky, Matt Ryan, who I know is a quarterback, Cal Peterson, and Joe Hicketts. And finally, goalie Anton Forsberg will wear number 31. Now, maybe I'm missing something here, but when I looked at the list of Kings players that have worn number 31, I was shocked to see that's almost exclusively goalies. David Rittich wore number 31 last for the Kings last year as their backup goalie. Before that, Ben Bishop, Peter Budaj, Martin Jones, Eric Erisberg, Matthew Garon, all wore number 31. So did Steve Passmore, Byron Defoe, Grant Fuhrer, and Rolly Melanson. Of the 19 players that have worn or will wear the number 31 in the history of the Los Angeles Kings, 18 of them have been goalies. Only one, forward Jared Allen, was the only one who wore number 31 who wasn't a goalie back in 2003. So what's going on with number 31? Am I an idiot here? I feel like I've followed hockey a long time. I never realized number 31 was such a popular number amongst goalies, at least with the LA Kings. But it's not just the Kings. Carey Price wore number 31. Igor Shesterkin currently wears 31 for the Rangers. Now, obviously, it's not universal, but a lot of goalies, and specifically with the LA Kings, have worn 31. So what gives? Why do goalies wear number 31? I've never noticed this before. So there's this wondrous invention called the internet. And according to hockeygoalies.org, quote, goalies often wore or wear number 31, the number in the 30s generally due to the combination of historical reasons and tradition. In the early days of hockey, when travel was primarily by train, players were assigned sleeping quarters based on their jersey numbers Starting goalies were number one. The backup goalies needed less rest. They were often assigned the highest available numbers, like 30 or 31. As sports evolved, these numbers became associated with goaltenders and are now commonly worn by them. End quote. So maybe I'm the dummy just for not realizing this with a lot of goalies, but I learned something today. Maybe you did too. I did not know that number 31 was so popular amongst goalies. So I found that out. I went through, fell into that rabbit hole, and it's got me thinking during this off season when we're looking for ideas. I may have to do a deeper dive on jersey numbers for the LA Kings. I did want to mention there was an article written recently. Well, it was an article, but there was a post on social media about cities that players might want to play in. It was a little weird, to be honest with you. I saw this on social media. You scroll around, you're just looking for things that might interest you, either just as a fan or as a host of a show. But look, we've talked about this. We've talked about the Kings' inability to sign big-time free agents historically and this year, right? Mitch Marner, he chooses Vegas. It's a better situation. No state income tax. The team's been more successful of late. They've won playoff games. Okay. Mikko Rantanen, apparently not about the money, but it was about a fit in his eyes. Didn't feel like he was a fit with the Kings. Okay. Defenseman Rasmus Andersson doesn't want to come to LA. Well, why? Was it a city thing? Or is it that he's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency and he wants to test the market? He doesn't want to sign a long-term deal with anybody. He wants to go out and see what he's worth. Maybe. So I think the answer probably is it's a lot of different things for a lot of different players. I don't know if there's one specific thing. I think it's probably a combination of things. But with that in mind, I did see a friend of the show, West Coast Hockey Bias on X and Twitter, put out a list that he found on the internet of the best NHL cities to live in, and it ranked them 1 through 32. And I saw that. It was a very colorful graphic. I'm going to put it up here if you're watching on YouTube on the screen, and it got my attention. I said, boy, that's very colorful. Where do the LA Kings rank? Oh, there they are, number 26 out of 32 teams, 7th from the bottom. And then it says underneath the title of the best NHL cities to live in, it says, factoring in safety, cost of living, traffic, and climate. And this is according to something called the Cardinal Report. So I'm like, okay, 2 questions. Number 1, what the F is the Cardinal Report? And number 2, why was the NHL kind of signaled out in this? I assume this is not talking about the best cities to live in if you're an NHL fan. It's the best. They're implying that this is the best place to live if you're an NHL player. And so, okay. At first, I needed to find out what is the Cardinal Report, or who are these people that are putting this together. So I did a Google search, and it revealed that this is a group, the Cardinal Group. They're from Canada, and they call themselves Athlete Advisors. That's what their group is. Okay. I've never heard of them, but okay. And why just rank the NHL cities? Well, obviously it's because they're trying to imply that this is where the players want to play. Now, obviously this doesn't include every city, just NHL cities. So there are some big time cities that are left off here, like Houston, Atlanta, things like that. But so my biggest takeaway from this was immediately, what do the players think? Wouldn't that be an important resource to tap into? Like, I would be very curious if this wasn't just based on safety, cost of living, traffic, and climate. How about what's the success rate of the teams? I want to know, what do players think about what is the best city to live in or to play in? That's really all that matters. So wouldn't that be important to include in your little study or your little poll or your little whatever this is? Just basing it on, these factors. I'm not saying it's completely irrelevant, but highly irrelevant. I mean, some of the teams, I took the graphic off now, but some of the teams that they had in their top 10, like, I'm not trying to knock any city necessarily, but Montreal was number one, by the way, for those of you that didn't see the graphic. Columbus was number two. Columbus? Edmonton was 4. My personal favorite, Winnipeg. Winnipeg was 7. Winnipeg is a top 10 city for NHL players to want to live in. Are you kidding me? Again, I'm not trying to be a hater, and I've never been to Winnipeg, but I've heard a lot of things about Winnipeg and being a place that players want to go live. And they've got a good team there. They got a good franchise, but that's not what they're basing this on. They're basing this on other factors. And I'm just telling you, I feel very comfortable saying Winnipeg is not on any NHL player's top 10 list of places to go live and play. I don't believe that. Now, maybe if you're, Connor Hellebuck and you've been there for years, it's okay. It's on the list now. But I mean, if you take everyone off every NHL roster and you tell all the players in the NHL, what city do you want to go play in? Winnipeg's not in the top 10. They had Buffalo at 13. Are you kidding me? Like, and all the lower half teams were the major cities where, yeah, you're going to have traffic and you're going to have crime. Although, is crime a big something for these NHL players? They're not living in the bad parts of town. They're living in the best parts of town. So I don't know that crime is something NHL players are worried about. Yet LA at 26, Chicago is 27, Boston 28, and New York City was dead last at number 32. So I would have to say, while it was an attractive, colorful little list that did get my attention for a few minutes, I don't know about the real research being done here, that this has uncovered anything that is going to give us an explanation for why players may not want to play in LA. Now, if you asked all the NHL players, if you polled them all or a majority of them, where would LA rank? I don't know, but I'd like to see that list. That's a list I'd like to see. Talk to the NHL players and get them to let you know where are the players and the cities, places in the cities that they want to play in. Pretty sure Buffalo and Winnipeg not going to be real high on the list. So I would say that study is a bit flawed, in my opinion. Up next, the LA Kings need to go to bat for Liam Greenree. We'll tell you why next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. So sometimes, especially in the offseason, I find articles, things on the internet that pique my interest, and I say, I'm going to talk about those things. And that's what we have today. And I did see a post on social media. It came from someone named Kyle Garcia, no relation as far as I know, could probably be a cousin. But Kyle writes for hockeyroyalty.com, and he wrote an article about Kings prospect Liam Greenree, probably the number one prospect, certainly their number one skating prospect. Of course, the goaltenders are pretty good in the system, but Kyle Garcia covers the LA Kings junior and college players for Hockey Royalty, writes about little articles about them. So he wrote about Liam Greenree, and the article is about how Greenree, because of his age, 19, cannot play in the AHL next season. He can only play in either the NHL or go back to his junior team because of the NHL CHL, Canadian Hockey League, transfer agreement. Now, I knew that already. Kyle also stated that it's more likely that Greenree will be forced to play back in juniors for another year because there just isn't a spot for him on the NHL roster. And I totally agree with that as well. So why does this suck for both the Kings and Greenree? Because he really has nothing to gain or prove by playing another year for the Windsor Spitfires. He's done all he needs to do at that level. It's time for him to level up and be challenged more and face better competition. And going back to junior hockey is not going to help his development. He needs to play in the AHL with the Ontario Reign. That's what's best for the player, and that's what's best for the team that is paying him. He's under contract with the LA Kings. This stupid rule I've never understood, that, there's this transfer agreement between the NHL and the CHL. I don't understand why the NHL ever agreed to this. And I get it. The CHL the OHL, the WHL, and the QMJHL, sure, they develop players for the NHL. But so does high school sports. So does college sports. They don't get a say on where a player plays, based on some agreement. If you're a college basketball player and you get drafted and signed by the Lakers, there's not some rule that says you got to go back and play college basketball for another year. That's ridiculous. So I don't know why the NHL has ever agreed to this. The CHL is not going to go away and die because the Liam Greentrees of the world play in the AHL. That's ridiculous. And things are changing. Things have already changed. After this season, teams can now designate a 19-year-old player of their choosing to play in the AHL, just like the Kings would do if this were a year later and the situation was the same with Liam Greentree. He wouldn't have to go back to junior hockey. So I'm glad that they've made that change. And it's very rare that a team would have more than one of those kind of players when they were in this situation. So giving them one, at least it's a step in the right direction. That's not a total change, but I would say it's progress. But in the case of Liam Greentree, it's actually worse. And this was the nugget that Kyle Garcia put in his article that I did not know about. Had Liam Greentree turned 20 before December 31st, he could have played in the AHL this year. But he missed the cutoff by 1 day. His birthday is January 1st. So not only is this a dumb rule, but he's missing out on a move that would be beneficial to him and the Kings by 24 effing hours. I mean, come on. I mean, I know it's probably asking too much. That common sense take over here. But look, this rule is changing next year. And Liam Greentree is missing out on a situation that would be better for him and the Kings by 1 day. I mean, can't we make an exception in this extreme case to let him play in the AHL next year? Shouldn't the LA Kings petition the CHL to say, look, the rule's changing next year. The guy missed it by 24 hours. Can't common sense apply here and say this guy, let's make an exception in his case for a rule that's changing anyway and let him play in the AHL? I mean, I can see common sense not applying because it just, in these situations, it rarely does. But it makes too much sense. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous that Liam Greentree is going to miss out on an opportunity to better himself and be in a better situation for his employer because of a rule that's going to change anyway and because of 24 hours when he was born a day later than the cutoff. So, I mean, I assume if the Kings could do something about it, they would have done something about it. But what a dumb situation. But good on Kyle Garcia for pointing that out. I did not know that. But it only makes a already frustrating situation even a little more frustrating. Real quick story time. I was at Disneyland on Wednesday by myself. I'm not that pathetic, but my wife and I usually go together once a week. We're season pass holders, but she's the number one Chargers fan on the face of the earth. And she went to training camp in San Diego with some friends of hers to see the Chargers. And so my wife didn't go, but I was like, you know what? I'll still go, get out of the house, go, have some fun. Single rider lines are pretty cool. You go almost right to the front of the line. Anyway, I was in line to do Astro Blasters. I was going to set a new high score because it's just going to be me shooting at the targets, which I did, by the way. But I get in line and this guy turns around and he says, "Hey, are you Eddie Garcia from Locked on LA Kings?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he introduced himself. It was Adam in Ventura. Then that didn't ring a bell, to be honest, but he said, "Oh, I'm Adam Foski on X and Twitter." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know that guy." And we were in line for about 25 minutes, talked all about the Kings, talked a little NFL as well. But I just wanted to give Adam a shout out and his family. His young son was there. I know Adam was very excited because he was going to he just got tall enough to go on the cool rides. And they were going to go get on Radiator Springs later, which is Adam's favorite ride. He was going to take his son for the first time. And anyways, great meeting you, Adam. Great meeting your son. Great meeting your very nice wife. And she was nice enough to let us yak in line about hockey and football for 25 minutes. So I think that's the first time I've ever met an everydayer in the wild. Right? I've met a lot of you guys at games or at a practice or something like that, or we've set something up to meet. But I don't know that I've ever just been out and about and somebody recognized me and said hello. That was very cool. So Adam in Ventura, thank you for being an everydayer. It was very, very nice to meet you. I also wanted to remind you guys real quick, if you have a question for our Ask Eddie segment, please get those in. We only have a couple of them so far, and we probably need about 10 more, to be honest, to actually have a show out of it. If you don't know what this is about, it's just a segment in the off season that's kind of fun. You can ask me any question you want, make it tasteful. And I prefer it not be about hockey, but it can be. I'm not going to tell you can't. If you have a hockey question, that's fine. But I would prefer it to be something other than hockey and have fun with it if you're interested. So if you are interested in that, send me an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put Ask Eddie. So I'll know that that's what this is about. And if you also have a question for our weekly fan feedback show, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, also the email address. We'd love you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. And if you even want more Kings coverage to help you be informed about the Kings, also to support me, have a weekly chat, a weekly live chat every week for those that are interested, lakingsextra@gmail.com. Send me an email there and I'll send you more information about that. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.